Hello, everyone. Happy New Year. Welcome to another episode of the Multifamily Hangout. Thank you for hanging out with us on this Thursday afternoon. We're excited to be back, Adrian and we have your first guest of the year. And so we are so excited to get into this conversation today. But before we do, I just want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Apartment Snapshot. Thanks to them. They are just being a part of our journey here as well with the Multifamily Hangout. And also remember, audience, we want you all to be engaging and just be a part of this conversation with us as well. So if you have any questions for our guests today, feel free, drop them in the chat. We will be reading them and we'll be talking about them, answering them. So also tell us where you're from. Just drop your name in the chats and just let us know where you are tuning in from. We love to hear and see all of our audience members. So thank you so much. And Adrian, I'll kick it off to you.
Hi, everybody. Happy New Year. We're super excited to kick the year off today with a very special guest. Our guest today is Gen Bauer. Jen is the Chief Operating Officer for Max Properties. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thank you, Adrian. Nita, I'm excited to be here.
Jen, to begin with, I'd like to ask you to share a few things about your background in multifamily. Tell us a little bit about your journey in multifamily.
Well, it started when I was a kid. I had a dream of going into property management. Okay, not seriously. So my multifamily journey began in Denver, Colorado. I had just finished school and I had a dream to work in sports. So I worked in sports operations while I was at DU. I worked for the hockey department and it was my dream. I wanted to work for the Avalanche or for the Rockies. I wanted to be like the Hannah Storm, Aaron Andrews kind of sideline reporter. And so with that, I applied for a job at the Western Athletic Conference and was on a short wait list there. So I went out and I found a temp job at a apartment operator in Denver, Security Capital Pacific Trust, which became Archstone. I was there temping, waiting for my job in sports. And meanwhile, a job came open with Michael Britty in the Telecommunications Ancillary Services Department. And that's where it all began. I think he hired me because I said I liked my cheesesteaks with wit. And Mike was a Wharton guy, so he appreciated that answer. And so I started out in the ancillary services. I worked on telecommunications contracts, and it was during that time back in the day, the good old day when we had cable and the companies were fighting to get into our communities. So it was a good gig, good time. I got to network. I met a ton of great people. In fact, I would love to take credit with a team of my associates back then that we actually started the first what is the OpTech conference? I think it was 23, 24 years ago that we had our first one. Obviously, it was successful. From there, it was interesting. I had the opportunity to speak at a conference. I had never spoke at a conference before, and I was with a tenured panel who talked me through it, and I got through it. And at the end, I was absolutely amazed that people were coming up to me and saying that they needed people to do what I was doing in their organization, and some really good opportunities came my way. And that was when I met Lori Reeves with Forest City, and she recruited me over there. And I moved to Cleveland, go Browns. And I was there with Forest City for 16 years. 13 of those years I spent with military housing. And that was it was one of those things where I was doing my job, happy with it. And this opportunity came along, hey, we're going to look into military housing. Who knows anything about it? I didn't know anything about it, but I knew people who knew things about it, and I reached out to them. And from there, we won our first deal in Hawaii. So I packed my suitcase and went on Google and found an office space and opened our Hawaii military operations for military housing. And so I was in the military housing space for 13 years. And it was a wild ride. We built up to, our portfolio grew to 15,000 units by 2012. That was just a wonderful experience, just an amazing company. So it was a little shocking to me when they closed their doors. And that was in 2016. I moved on. And most notably, I spent several years at Balfour Beatty, which is where I met Adrian and had the opportunity to work with him on a number of really successful projects where we did value add enhancements to communities, and just had such a fun ride there. And then finally, I found my home. Shout out to my Max family that's tuned in at Max Properties, and currently their chief operating officer. So I've had a good deal of experience in pretty much every type of housing at this point.
Nice. And I was going to say, you just look like you're 25, so you must have started when you were 5 years old in the industry.
Yeah, you're right. 5.
I know that you have tenure in the industry, years of experience, and I know that throughout the years, you've probably seen so many changes. So can you share any changes, trends that have happened, and even those that maybe even have stood out to you throughout your time in property management?
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely say that the last 5 years have been like the most wild that I've seen. You didn't say the word, but I'll say it. COVID, it's like pre-post COVID. And I will never forget, I was at NAA with, hundreds of my closest friends in March of 2020. And I knew that it was going to be, goodbye for a while. But it was a really challenging time, but a lot of silver lining lied, with all of it. I think we realized how, resilient we are as an industry. We all learned that we were essential, right? It's always good to know, wow, we are essential. Also, it was a great time of collaboration between the operators to come together and work together on the rapidly changing policies and procedures. So a lot of good out of that. As far as, trends and changes that, have seen in recent years is definitely the resident expectations, resident experience. There's really that kind of demand response. I want my Amazon package today. I don't want to talk to anyone when I go to the grocery store. I want to do things myself. I am a renter in New York. I have rented 2 apartments, and I've done both of those without talking to a leasing person up front. I use Tour24 and a big fan of that product, and rented my apartment. But I will tell you, I'm the first to tell you, that when I needed to go in the office, I wanted to talk to a person. I wanted them to be there and respond. So I think the way that we interact with our the customer journey is changing. Another trend that's not really new, but kind of joke around about it. I'm so glad that Facebook wasn't around when I was a kid. Everybody would know everything about me, things I did, but it's there, right? Our reputation for our communities, it is out there. It is, they might not even walk through your door or go on your website once they've, hit the Google splash page or whatnot. Although fortunately, I hear a lot of our lead sources are coming through other social avenues, but really like the resident user experience, demand, and importance of reputation are some of the kind of biggest trends that I've seen changes.
So, Jen, I want to stay a little bit on this topic and ask you, what are the changes that you see when it comes to maintenance in relation to COVID, right? Pre-COVID versus post-COVID, from a labor force perspective, and also from a perspective of the resident, resident expectation service. How has it evolved during COVID, and what are we looking at post-COVID, some trends that you can think of?
From the maintenance side, I think will always be, the most, critical function of the operations. We definitely learned a lot during COVID. And I think some of those lessons that we learned had to do with, more resident education and really giving them information at the time of move-in about how things work. I've seen a lot of really creative things with, catalogs of service, There's a solution that we're piloting where there's a triage up front, really, it's like an actual skilled maintenance professional that's taking the on-call so that they can help the resident triage. And a lot of that came out of COVID because it was, they didn't want you in your home. And so now we're kind of back to normal mode of operations, but it is, the labor pool is challenging. We've done a number of things on our side to attract talent to our positions, and removing some barriers that were there. It's really the most important thing. I'll give you one example. We eliminated the driver's license requirement. We're a very large urban operator, and we looked at it and said we turned down some really qualified people because of this requirement that a lot of people are ride sharing these days, and there's transit, and some people just don't want to drive. Maybe missing a whole pool of folks. So I don't know if that answers some of your question.
Oh, it certainly does. It certainly does.
Yeah, and I like that you eliminated, the driver's license, right? And I think that a lot of times we tend to get stuck in this is how it's always been done, this is how it's always worked. But, you got to keep up with times. I believe in just staying on top of those trends and also looking into what's working for us, right? Because Max, could be totally different from another property management company. And so I think that that's definitely important to do that. And that was one of the things that even I've done as well. Speaking of talent, where even in some of those roles, is it really required to have a bachelor's degree? Is it really, can we hire someone with, just a high school diploma or maybe none, So those are things that we definitely have to consider at our companies, just to make sure that we're attracting the best candidates as well, because like you said, you can lose out on those people. What would you say, in your opinion, what are the most important qualities to have to make you a successful leader within the property management industry?
So a successful leader, listening, active listening is extremely important. Just being on site and getting feedback from, every level of team member. I mean, that's, I might not say anything, but I'm taking it in and then I'm taking it back, right? And taking action on what I'm hearing. For example, when I first started, we're like, wow, we have a lot of open positions. We had some interesting requirements in place at the time, because of COVID related, that, we said, does this still make sense? And it didn't. So, and that, that just came from conversation with a couple of the techs on a property, and it was something we made a wholesale change, and it worked. So other qualities, I definitely say accountability. Everyone is going to make mistakes. You have to own it. You have to recognize it. I think the one of the worst things, I made a big mistake once. I took on managing a property that we should have done. I didn't do the level of due diligence I should have done. I felt bad because I took everybody along with me for the ride, but I recognized it quickly and, just said, this is my fault. You have to own it. So I think accountability is another quality. Resiliency in this industry, you're not going to make it if you don't have it. There's so many things that happen. We've had, disasters. I had a situation several years ago where hurricane wiped out one of our properties in Panama City, and the whole team was resilient. We figured, it was tragic. It was awful to see, right? But you just figure it out. You roll up your sleeves and you're like, we need to get this done. We need to get the residents back in their homes. And then finally, I would just say empathy. He's a customer service business. We are in the customer service. Our residents are the reason why we are here. And we have to keep that front and center.
Before I go to the next question for you, Jen, I just want to acknowledge everybody that's been joining us today. We got a ton of messages. We see you all out there. Thank you for the love in the comments. We would love to hear questions from you so we could ask Jen some questions from the audience. So please type in your questions. We're going to be looking at the comments that are coming in, and we will ask the question on your behalf. Next, I wanted to touch on technology. And first of all, I wanted to There's a few questions here that I have about technology, but let's start by setting up the tone. How do you see technology evolving and impacting the future of property management, and what role do you think it will play in improving operations and residents' experience?
The prop tech evolution, it's going to continue to evolve. That's been one of my areas of focus since joining Max, and I apologize upfront to the Max team. I've put a lot of work ahead of them, and I've tried to pull back. Got a little bit of feedback that I was trying to do too much. So from the supplier side, you're hearing it from me. There's a line at the door. I'm not calling you back because I don't want to. It's just, it's like the team is stressed right now with all the prop tech initiatives, but it's going to continue to evolve. The trend that I see and, some of the insights that I have, I'm on the National Apartment Association Education Advisory Board. So I had the pleasure of reading hundreds of submissions for the Apartmentalized Education Conference. And so many of those were focused on technology and, automation. And so just kind of seeing what came in as far as like the conference session education that's out there. And then what I'm seeing myself is that we are in a position where we're automating a lot of functions. We have various AI solutions out there, artificial intelligence solutions out there. And what I'm seeing the talk about is really that HI and AI. So human intelligence and artificial intelligence working together. I don't see this replacing humans, but I see just job functions changing, team members being able to focus on different areas of the business, while this technology is grabbing hold, and, the way that it's affecting tons of technologies. I just sat in on a session today where we really product that's automating the renewal process. We have a new, let's say, post-resident recovery pay ready, which is more automated of the way that we handle our post-resident receivables. So a lot of functions, customer CRM is more automated. So that automation and that AI is going to continue to evolve the way that we operate and the resident experience.
I like to bring another question in regards to tech. I want to paint a little bit the current environment. Back a couple of months ago when we met at UpTech, there was a panel I was a part of, and a couple of leaders that were on a panel were saying, were sharing conversations that they had with other peers in an industry. And one was saying, well, we're at a point where we're requiring our leasing agents to be proficient in about 54 different pieces of software. And the other person replied saying, you're good, because, our number is 63. When you have this type of expectation from an entry-level employee, I don't think that this is an exception. I think this is kind of the norm of what's happening. And mainly is that, COVID created this void where we couldn't interact in person, and companies were in a hurry to fill that void. And the way they filled it mainly was through technology. But it started that way, and I define our current situation as punishing our people with technology. So it's at the point where it's so overwhelming. I looked at companies I worked for recently. When I looked at a tech stack, it's kind of like the Apple Store. In a way, it's amazing, right? Because you have so much technology available to you. When you look at it from a standpoint of like what's required technology for our employees to learn to be proficient in, it gets overwhelming very quickly. So is this a situation that you're seeing in an industry as a whole? And if that's what you're seeing, what are some ways in which we could overcome, and what are some opportunities?
100%, Adrian. I talked about the NAA Education Advisory Board, and in our first working session, we kind of all went around the room and was like, what's your number? How many solutions do you have? It is a real thing. First and foremost, I would say that there is likely some of the stack that's not productive, that needs to be, looked at. Is this helping our business? Is this necessary? We do a lot of pilots. Shout out to my pilot teams. And, and if the pilot doesn't yield results, then we don't move forward. So I'm seeing a lot of companies successfully streamline their property management stack into a smaller deck. I've seen ways that they've made it easier for team members to use the technology with like Okta, more single sign-on, making it easier to navigate, because even that's like the battle is like, what's my password to get into all of this? So no, it is absolutely a challenge and an opportunity at the same time to improve the training solution that we have out there. We've got a great systems training team. Really the flexibility that they offer is key, in just that, okay, not training is 1:00 on my time, but as you're, working with this program, I'm here to help you. But it is a lot, Adrian. And also too, like on the maintenance side, I'll point that out. Like we are, introducing more tech to them on a regular basis.
How do we overcome? How do we sort through all these large stacks of tech? What do you think is, maybe a solution or a number of solutions to release some of that pressure from the side teams and make things make more sense, really?
I think we're going to find the answer from our own team members. Their really, listening to them, their feedback on, what isn't working. And I think it's just streamlining it. But I think the answers are definitely going to come from our users and just taking that feedback and acting on it.
I don't want to monopolize the conversation, but you're making me do it. The reason why I'm saying that is that you mentioned the end user. The issue that I'm seeing with most tech companies, right, when they first start from scratch, is that they're hiring someone that could write code, that they could design the product, the tech. And then secondly, they're hiring people that could sell the product, could push the product to the potential client. Right here in this picture, nowhere the end user is represented most of the times. There's some exceptions from it, but that's what I'm seeing, what I've been seeing over the years as a rule. Is this something that, you're seeing as well? From where you stand, is it different? Does it look different?
The end user experience, I completely agree with you as far as, okay, the person who coded this is many, many years ago. And, at Balfour, I had the opportunity, I worked in student housing. We used a number of different platforms, and I will say that there are ones out there that offer a very pleasant user experience or are working to get there or are currently rolling that out. I do see, aspirations by them to, pun intended, elevate their product so that it's more user friendly. But I agree with you. That is the future. I mean, the talent that we're hiring, that's what they're going to be used to be seeing, right?
Naida, you take the next two questions. I asked too many questions in a row. I couldn't help myself. So you take the next two.
Yeah, it's all good. That's what it's about, right? Just have those follow-up questions. So it's all good. I do want to take a question from the audience, and I'm sorry if I mispronounced her name, but Mikhail Perksky Hasman, she asked, are your properties experiencing an increase in fraud in applications?
That's a great question. Are we experiencing an increase in fraud? And the thing is, I don't think we knew that we were absolutely experiencing fraud everywhere, but we've spent the past year evaluating different solutions. We do use a prospect verification tool, and we demoed and piloted several different fraud solutions. And we're probably a third of the way rolled out on the solution that we chose, and we see it. We can see the numbers that are coming in. And then also too, we don't have a lot of data around it, but it's sort of like that ADT side in your front yard. How many folks are we keeping from actually going to the next step by knowing that we're, using a tool to verify their pay stubs and financial information? But yes, great question. And once we lit it up, we could really track the numbers that we were seeing. I think it was like 2%.
And then there's also another question, which is great. Keep the questions coming in, you guys. The other question is, Jen, what are your biggest focus points for 2024 and how are you hoping to tackle them?
Just to say, this is from Savannah. I think on our feed right here doesn't show like
it doesn't show.
Okay.
On LinkedIn, it does. So Alex made me aware. I want to give Savannah credit for asking the question. We see you.
Hey, Savannah.
Okay, I love this question. I can sum it up in one word, and that's retention. We're laser focused on resident retention in 2024. And more importantly, we're focused on employee retention engagement. I don't want to give away any secrets on the call, but we do have an exciting employee initiative that we're working on that will be coming the beginning of Q2. We're actively working on it right now. So I can't say anything about that, but our upcoming leadership, our conference, that's really our theme, and we've got a lot of fun centered content around that. On the resident retention side, it is one of those areas of focus that is going to require a lot of different elements to it. Getting back to the basics of following up. Perhaps we can utilize some technology to help us there. So those are really that's the main focus in 2024, retention.
I want to take the next question from the audience once again. And this question comes from Alejandra Mancia. Is Max doing anything today around centralization and focusing more on having a specific team dedicated on resident experience or tours, etc.?
With respect to centralization, that's a great buzzword. There's a number of areas in which we, have tried to relook at the way that we're operating. Again, I want to say, I don't think centralization in general is anything that's new. I think it's been around for a long time. A lot of folks have centralize their AR, collections, leasing, even maintenance. But we've centralized a couple of functions. We have tried to give the teams a little bit more ability to focus in other areas by centralizing some collections functions, taking that from the site. As far as a focus on resident experience tours, we are not there yet. It's definitely something that we're exploring and that we're in a good position to do because of the way that we're geographically located. But to this point, really nothing. We are working with a couple different solutions providers for tours. One of those I mentioned earlier, Tour 24.
Are you all doing any virtual or self-guided tours?
Yeah, that was, so I've been with Max for about a year and a half. And, so that predated me we had a couple different solutions in place, and, we're moving more towards a curated, tour. Again, I'm a big fan. I rented my last apartment that way. Because again, people, want options. They want the human, or they really just want to come in on their own time because they don't get off at work until 6 and there's not anyone there.
There's another question from the audience. Harrison Dorn asked, are you looking at technology to assist with local law 97 compliance for your New York properties or other regulations in other markets? If so, what tech solutions have you explored?
We are working with Bright Power to assist with our local law 97 for New York properties. And as far as other markets go, there's one market in particular, Denver, that is high on our radar. So maybe Harrison can shout me out separately after this.
The next comment is from Tony Blake. I love to hear your goals. I'm a Max fan. I'd love to know the KPIs you are focused on moving in 2024. Imagine the year is over. What ROI do you think will show up as an impact on your focus for 2024?
So I'll dissect this a little bit. So from a KPI standpoint, I'm just ecstatic. We implemented Reba Business Analytics this year. We are, it's a lot at first. There's so much information that you're given. And just another plug, there was a great white paper for 20 for 20 that came out today on this topic. And myself and Gina, our VP of Marketing, contributed to this. But so we've got, we have all this data. and KPIs that we're focused on. It's really a number of things. So we're focused on reputation. We're focused on that retention number. We're focused on the quality and effectiveness of our maintenance, which is going to drive all of those goals. So not to get like specific what those targets are for work order response, but work order response, reputation number, retention. The climate is tough right now. We are in high supply markets at Max, and rent's not growing. And when I presented the budget, I was like, I cannot believe I am presenting this really just flat NOI growth. So I'm really just trying to outperform that, and to do that by focusing on those areas.
I was thinking general environment, right? And what do you see in a market with the floating interest rates that we're calling them floating, but they're not actually like floating around. They're kind of like climbing and climbing fast. Some of the investors are now paying like double or triple the mortgage that they used to pay 2 years ago. As little as I know on a financial part, I know that there's only two ways you could make money, right? By collecting income or controlling your expenses. You either like collect more rent, which, seems like it's not happening. A lot of markets were, like overbuilt for what I'm seeing through data. Do you see the same thing? Some of the markets being overbuilt, or something that's coming in, in 2024? Do you see that as a challenge in certain markets?
100%. We're in a great position at Max. We are long-term owner operators. We have held on to these assets. We've refinanced them. We're not in a position where we're a value add owner developer sitting there with a property that we just bought 2 years ago. We have held on to these assets. So we're going to hold tight. We're going to, buckle up and manage those expenses and, do the best that we can in this environment. But the supply is coming, but there's a, demand for that. So, I'm a big fan of Jay Parsons. I read all of his reports that come out on markets and demand. Fortunately, our Phoenix, Denver, Arizona, Las Vegas, those markets are always on his list for the high supply. So we're just, we're hanging in there. We're in the space that we're in, kind of that B space, different from that Class A new build. It's 2024, but I see that, being brighter days ahead.
So for those that are not Max properties, right, they must do better on maintenance, because that's where expense control is at. Your rents can't grow any higher, where, they're growing at a very slow pace comparing to 2 years ago. You're paying a lot more in mortgage. The only way that you could like make things better is to control expenses, hopefully cut some of the expenses, like operate better. And the number one controllable expense is maintenance. So maybe 2024 will be the year of maintenance, where the maintenance.
For that reason, we just yesterday, and I think it was yesterday and the day before, we had dozens of people together in our Denver office for a maintenance summit where we talked about budgets and exchanged great ideas on how to improve. And I heard a lot of good ideas. A lot of good things came out of that meeting.
That's why I love to have your leadership on a podcast, either this one or the maintenance specific podcast, to share with us. All of us are super curious about, what are you cooking at Max right there for 2024? Maybe some of the other companies, get inspired and they take some of those initiatives and implement them at their own companies.
Absolutely.
I want to switch gears a little bit, and I want to talk about career development. You've been a former chair of the NAAEI, which is the National Apartment Association Education Institute, with the Apartment Careers Committee. What insights did you gain regarding career development within the industry?
So I served as the vice chair for 2 years and chair of the NAAEI. It's now the RPM Careers Committee, so Residential Property Management Careers, not to be confused with Regional Property Manager. Some people hear that and they think Regional Property Manager, but it's Residential Property Management Careers. On that committee, we had a plan of work that consisted of 3 primary areas. Number 1 was promoting RPM careers. Number 2 was supporting workforce development initiatives. And 3, and this is not going to surprise Adrian, but it was, how do we attract and retain maintenance professionals? So this committee was pretty much entirely dedicated to those three areas. And they each one had a subcommittee. I think a lot of people don't know the breadth of the workforce development that NAA has been involved with. They've worked with a lot of their different affiliates on workforce development programs. I unfortunately did not, during my tenure, get a good catalog together. That was always on my wish list, but they're out there, and it's, you can see Denver has a great one called MAP, Maintenance Apprenticeship Program. Then Adrian, I'm sure you're familiar with many more, but NAA has done some great work there. As far as promoting RPM careers, in those 4 years, we made a lot of great strides with the promotion of the campaign for, promoting careers in this industry. One of the things that we found to be extremely successful was RPM Careers Week. And I'll just make a quick plug for everyone that is April 15th. There's a schedule of events. The RPM Toolkit is live now, so you can go on and check that out. Just to make Adrian smile, Tuesday is Maintenance Technician Appreciation Day. Wednesday is that on-site Teams Day. There is a Supplier Partner Day on Thursday, and there's a Support Department Celebration Day on Friday. So I want to just tell you real quick how the Maintenance Tuesday came about, because Maintenance Monday sounded really great, right? And I think we did it one year, but everybody was like, we can't do that to them on a Monday. It's crazy Maintenance Day. Why are we trying to, pull them away from, the craziest day to celebrate? So, we changed it to Tuesday. But, it's a great opportunity. Not only is it a great opportunity, but it is the single most successful campaign that we have. So, NAA, we pay for this marketing campaign, but this is all organic. This marketing campaign is organic traction that we get through folks posting this on their social. So please do that. Do it for the industry.
Whenever there's initiatives like that, sometimes, they're coming in my feed, or like I get an email, but sometimes I don't. I love to support in any way, right? And I'll even love to, bring someone from NAA to like speak about all those great initiatives. I believe, like, as a matter of personal opinion, I'm a big consumer of content on social media, especially LinkedIn. And this is where a lot of us in the industry are hanging out, right, on LinkedIn. But for some reason, stuff from NAA is not coming into my feed too often. And maybe they're generating this content and it's just not coming into my feed. But for sure, like, it will be very helpful, to push more content more often. And I'm one to just say my door is open. Whenever there's a great initiative, just bring it on. I love to have, to do a podcast episode to make those initiatives more popular, more known by the general public. Because I'm thinking, if I don't know about some of them, or maybe most of them, then how about the rest of the people that are not all that, I guess, so much into LinkedIn, so much active on LinkedIn, right? Maybe there's different channels, maybe I'm oblivious to other channels, but I'm definitely super open to have anyone from NAA, come on a podcast and talk about those initiatives. I think that, our industry peers need to hear about them, really.
I think Aishia would be excited to do that. She is the vice chair, or Carolyn. So I think they will take you up on that opportunity, and I will make that happen.
Absolutely. And I thank you for that. We need to support our industry in any way we can. Next question, Jen. I'd like to ask you something about that's not property management. It's about a project that's, very near and dear to your heart. Tell us about Entryway. Tell us about your involvement out there, and why did you get involved? What's great about the Entryway project? I'd like to, help get the word out.
Entryway, for those of you who may not be familiar, it was previously from shelters to shutters. And they changed, they rebranded, changed the name because it doesn't really roll off the tongue as easy as Entryway. So, but the folks at Entryway, they were doing great things. David Williams, their president, they've really, experienced tremendous support from our industry and growth. But, what they're doing is they're helping people that find themselves in precarious housing situations, and they are giving them the skills. Really, they're upskilling them to be able to fill roles that we have in property management. So they're partnering with property management providers, and in exchange for giving them some housing stability. So they're eligible for housing discounts, and really just helping them find both stability and a place to work, a career, and a place to live. How I got involved with Entryways at my time as NAA chair was winding down, I thought, what other great project do I want to get myself involved with? So I reached out to David and just said, I have years of this workforce development experience with the RPM Careers Committee. How can I help you? And he said, you know what, we could use some help in the area of training. And I thought, well, I'm not learning and development or training. I'm like, but I know a bunch of people who are. So I assembled some of my good old seasoned pros, Christopher Yellen from Balfour Beatty, Mo Rondo. We've got Dr. Debbie, Kara Rice, really just a solid team of people that could advise Entryway as they, went on their journey of establishing these various markets. So, the challenge that they had ahead of them is that they had, they're in several different markets. And so they had to find consistency in what that program looked like. It had to be flexible. It had to be focused on adult learning, and it had to be quick. It can't be like, okay, these folks need the housing now. They need to be trained quickly. So I've been working with them, with this committee on their training initiatives, and it's amazing how far that they've come and they've built this program. So, not only are we helping individuals find home, we're helping to solve our labor shortage concerns, with initiatives like this. If you don't know about them, I encourage you to go check them out. So, Adrienne, thanks for bringing that up. And also, too, I don't know if you wanted me to address the pilot program, but they have a really exciting pilot program that they're kicking off in Philadelphia in partnership with Home Team Temps in June at the NAA Apartmentalize in Philadelphia. Go Eagles. I will be speaking on a panel. Yes.
Of course.
Yes, that's awesome. We need that. We're going to win. We're going to win. Oh, you made my whole day. Thank you. We need this win. We need this W.
Of course, we need both wins, right? We need for Eagles to win, and we also need this win for the industry, bringing people in, offering them like a roof over their head, and also training them so they could be capable to be on their own. It's a noble cause. It goes way beyond taking care of like resolving a need for the apartment industry, like way beyond that. It's humanity if you want. So I'm involved myself in a way out there. I'm very passionate about it. I think that we could make this a legacy project for all of us that are involved out there.
Yeah. So keep your eye out. Myself, David Williams, Jason Zerby, the CEO of the Pennsylvania Apartment Association, will be speaking at Apartmentalize about this, really exciting pilot that we're kicking off in Philadelphia and in the DC markets to start.
Yeah, and I want to say that I'm very familiar with Shelters to Shutters because when I was at Legend, that's when I was actually introduced to Shelters to Shutters. And, when I heard that they rebranded, I was like, okay, that's great. That's awesome to hear that they're still around and still doing their thing. And I remember hiring people from Shelters to Shutters, and, it was very rewarding because, these people, their situation, and, it's unfortunate. And it would just be so awesome that we would provide housing for them. And we would hire them even as like a grounds person, at least just to get their foot in the door. But we would train them. We would make sure to show them the way to become a maintenance person, a maintenance tech. I think it's just a rewarding thing to do to be able to help other people out. So if you're out there and you haven't worked with them, now they're Entryway, definitely getting in touch with them, get in contact with them, and, just help other people out. That's how you got to do it. Just pay it forward and help each other out. I want to ask you, in terms of like someone who's new in the industry, what advice would you have for that person who's maybe their first year, they're like a rookie in the industry. What would be your advice to them starting out in this industry?
So I used to, with NAA, they would ask me occasionally to go speak with the DECA students. And it was different. There's DECA High School, DECA Collegiate. And so as part of that presentation, I would always give, them advice. They had not necessarily in the industry yet, but I would encourage them to get involved, join local chapters. If they didn't have the means to do that, attend some of the events that they could. If they wanted to learn more about the industry, also, find a mentor, somebody that might be doing the job. I have a woman that I've met, a young woman who's come to me like, oh, you're in property management. And, I've been talking to her about it, trying to encourage her. So in a way, I'm mentoring her to get into this industry. So find a mentor. And then also, look for internship opportunities and make that commitment, someplace that you can grow. So many opportunities with this industry and flexibility, the housing benefits. That would be my advice there. If it's somebody who's in the industry and they're looking to grow, become a regional property manager, or, even beyond, just grow. My advice is make that known. Make sure it's known that you want to grow. A lot of folks in our career, they don't necessarily aspire. They may really have a passion for what they're doing and don't want to be a regional property manager. But if they do, or if they want to be a vice president, that's where, jump in, help out at other properties, become the mentor for your mentoring program, help with acquisitions, like constantly be raising your hand to help. When there's a vacancy in a position, go to another region. And these things that I'm saying, I recently had 2 of my team members promoted to regional vice president, and these are all the things they did. They went above and beyond and extended themselves past their job to get things done and help the organization.
Jen, the word influencer is very fashionable. Everybody talks about influencers, right? I'm going to take it and tweak it a little bit. And my question to you is, tell us about who is the most influential person in your life and in your career. If there's 2 different people, right? Or if it's one person that marked your life and career in such a way, who's that person and why?
I love this. So this is so funny because, most influential in my life is my mother for sure. And I laugh at the word influencer because she was so tech savvy and she would absolutely be an influencer if she was here today. She's the one who told me about MySpace. I'm like, Mom, what is that? This is like, so anyway, so my mother, Betty, she was definitely the most influential person in my life. She immigrated here from Cuba when she was 9. She assimilated into, this country, landed in Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, born and raised. And she was a business owner, single mother. And, she encouraged me. She really convinced me I could do anything I wanted. Like I thought I could be like the president of the United States. I didn't want to do that, but she made me think that I could. But she encouraged me to, get out and fly, to leave my nest of Delco, Pennsylvania, even though I'm proud of Delco. But, I left. I went to school in Colorado, but she encouraged me, was always my biggest fan. And then from there, I would say that the most influential person in my life was, and I might get a little teary, is my boss at Forest City, Angelo Pimpus. Okay, I'm tearing up. But yeah, he was a great man, and he was like, he's retired now from the business, but he was a coach, like literally a coach. He was a football coach for his son's team, but that's how he, kind of handled his business, right? He inspired us. Like he was always quoting a sports speech. He taught us all to fight for that inch. But he also, he was firm, but he was fair, and he always rewarded us. He cared about his people deeply. So for that, I'm appreciative and definitely most influential in my life. You had to make me tear up, Adrian, when you asked me this question.
You get me into that mood too. It doesn't take to get that way. And when you mention your mom, my mom is my hero too. So
Would she have been an influencer like you?
She would have not been an influencer. She's a person of a different era. I think she would have been a different type of influencer. She would have been a boss. Uh, she still
That's
is a
great.
boss. She still is a boss. She had a surgery like 3 weeks ago, and from the hospital bed, she will handle business on her phone, and she will put people in their places. And I said to my brother, I said, "Mom is fine. How could you tell it's fine? She's handling business. She's
Right.
putting people around. She's fine. Trust me." And sure enough, like in like a matter of like 3 or 4 days after she had the knee surgery, she walked by herself.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
yeah, so that really resonates with me.
Well, I can see where you get your strength from,
Very,
Adrian.
very similar. I
Yeah.
guess very similar stories as yours.
Yeah.
So it goes very deep for me.
I love it. I love it. Well, Jen, I also wanted to just to ask you about your leadership journey. What are the important lessons that you've learned throughout your journey, from your journey?
The best ideas come from everywhere. It is, creating that environment, that space where people feel like they can come to you with any idea, any level of the organization. That's success. Because that's where you're going to get your feedback. We talked about that earlier. Adrian, you talked about how do we solve this? The answers are there with our people on how we make things better for them. And then also too, I think lifelong learning is an essential part of the leadership journey, taking advantage of the many opportunities that are out there to learn really about leadership, taking that to your people. And then most importantly, leadership lesson is take care of your people. I've left companies and I've never left the people that are there. Still there from them. If they call, they need something, I'm there. I was so honored. Recently, one of my former team members asked me to do her installation at the Greater Birmingham Apartment Association. And I was so honored and touched. I flew down and did this, and I didn't realize how much it meant to her, but always take care of your people, past, current, and it will come. It will follow.
Jen, thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Yeah, you made the day special for me, and I'm sure for all of us in the audience right here, we had lots of a ton of engagement. It was one of the most engaged episodes we had as far as audience and people wanted to be here and interacting. I'd like to give you the opportunity to share some closing thoughts with us. What are some closing thoughts that you would like to share with us and the audience?
Closing thoughts. Well, I have never done a podcast, but Adrian, because it was you and you asked me to do this, I'm like, I have to do this. So it's really not, I guess, as scary as I thought it was going to be. So if anyone is thinking about doing this, it's kind of like just kind of chill, hanging out, dialogue, answering questions. But no, I appreciate you inviting me to be a part of this. It's funny to me to think that people would care what I have to say, but I appreciate it. And I really love your choice of attire, Adrian. I'm very, very excited that you chose to wear your Eagles gear today.
It was to honor our past and also our common passion, right, for the Eagles. So I came prepared. Let me just say this. I was ready.
Do you remember I got you the Super Bowl t-shirt when they won? I was so excited. Oh, you have that on too. Oh my gosh.
It's a full circle moment.
I'm wearing it.
That's awesome.
I told you.
I love it. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
It's been a special day to have you on, Jen. If someone in the audience wants to reach out to you, how can they get in touch with you?
So LinkedIn is always great too, via email on genevieve.bauer@maxproperties.com. And if you could spell Genevieve, or if you can't, I also have jen.bauer@maxproperties.com.
Thank you again. We're grateful to have you here today, hanging out with us. Thank you to all of you in the audience. I want to thank our sponsors that are making this podcast possible, our partners from Apartment Snapshot. We hope to see you back here soon. Neida, would you like to take over, introduce our next guest, the guest we have next week?
Yes. We are excited to meet with our next guest next week, which will be Dr. Nabil El Gururi had to reschedule. We know we said before the end of last year that he was going to be our first guest this year, but we had to reschedule. So we will be speaking with him next week, same time, Thursday. Well, actually, we'll be at 2 next Thursday, matter of fact. So you all just make note that there will be a time change next week. And yeah, very excited for that conversation.
Thank you all for being here with us, and see you all next week, 2 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time here at the Multifamily Hangout. Have a great afternoon.